12 minutes. That's what the countdown gave them. 6 humans, no weapons, a cutting torch already sparking against the cargo bay door. Maya Tors told this story more times than she could count, but the ending never moved. 6 of them walked out, and every hegemony trooper who'd walked in stayed behind. Vex 9 heard it first at the Nexus station cantina, 3 drinks into a synth ale, when he noticed the human woman at the far end of the bar, bare arms, thin shirt, nothing between her and the universe but skin and an unbothered kind of calm. Every species on the council had asked the same question for 50 years and never gotten a straight answer. He decided he'd be the one to get it. "You fight the hegemony," he said, loud enough to quiet the room. "You face things that make my people wake up screaming, and you wear that." He gestured at her bare forearms. "Why?" She turned, looked him over, and laughed, not politely, but from somewhere low in her chest, loud enough that the Zaffaran bartender stopped pouring mid-drink. "You really want to know?" She rolled up her sleeves and told him to hit her. He refused twice. Striking an unarmored being was beneath a warrior's honor. She kept asking, and by the third refusal she'd stopped smiling, and something in that stillness made refusing feel like the more dangerous choice. So he swung, full force, 4 centuries of bred-in muscle behind it, a blow meant to cave in battle plating. She didn't block it, didn't dodge it. Her spine folded with the impact like something built to bend rather than break, and the strike that should have ended her spent itself against nothing. She came back upright, unmarked, grinning wider than before. "Lesson 1, she told the room. "We don't wear armor because we are the armor. Bone that flexes before it snaps. Muscle built to eat the shock instead of pass it along. You just hit the frame of something engineered to survive being hit." At the corner table, the station's healer set down his drink, his tendrils drawn tight against his skull. "I've run full scans on human physiology. Dense bone, efficient tissue, nothing beyond biological limits. What you just did should not be possible." "You scanned the wrong layer, Doc." She crossed to his table, and every step closed a distance he hadn't agreed to. "When your friend hit me, I didn't calculate a defense. I got angry, old kind of angry, the kind that used to keep something with claws off our children at night." "Most species evolved to run from the predator," she said. "We evolved to be it. Threaten us, and you're not fighting nerves and reflex, you're fighting the thing every other line on this station learned, generations ago, to avoid." Rex Parker, a cargo hauler 2 seats down, leaned in with a grin of his own. "Tell him about Kepler 7. Something old moved behind Maya's eyes at the name. 12 minutes, she said, and the cantina's noise dropped away entirely. "That's what the commander gave us. Full hegemony squad. Armor rated to shrug off a battleship's main gun. 6 of us in a cargo bay with a sealed door, and him telling us to kneel." He'd laughed, she said, when she asked him first whether he knew what happened when you cornered something that had hunted its own predators into extinction. He'd found it funny, so she'd shown him. He counted it out on her fingers, unhurried, like reading inventory. The first trooper, she'd taken his helmet in both hands and turned his head somewhere a head was never meant to go. And after that the armor stopped mattering, because armor only stops what comes from outside. The rest ran, which was the second mistake, because a chase was the one thing a human body was built for above almost everything else. Not the sprint, the pursuit, mile after mile, until the legs underneath simply quit. "A chair becomes a club," she said. "A shipping container becomes 2 tons of falling metal once you convince a gravity rig to let go of it for half a second." By the time she described rerouting the coolant lines into the intake vents mounted, with beautiful stupidity, on the back of every hegemony helmet, even the mineral-born traders at the next table had stopped pretending not to listen. But it was the last 5 who mattered. Backup was 10 minutes out. Full assault team, atmospheric fighters, the works. So she'd sat down in the wreckage of that cargo bay and laughed, not because anything was funny, but because she needed them to understand that being outnumbered wasn't costing her anything at all. Fear does something to most species. It makes them fold or makes them stupid. Theirs made them cluster together for comfort, right under a gravity manifold, She'd already decided to turn into something it was never built to be. She didn't describe what that did to 5 bodies compressed into 3 meters of deck plating. She didn't have to. The healer had stopped writing. The assault team cut through 10 minutes later and found a bay redecorated like abstract art, and one human sitting cross-legged in the middle of it, still laughing. Their commander, a veteran, by the look of him, someone who'd seen real combat across a dozen systems, stood in the doorway a long moment before he said anything at all. He didn't ask for a surrender, Maya said. He asked what I was. The whole cantina had gone still, waiting on the answer the way Vex Nine's people waited on a verdict. I told him the plain version, she said. I said his squad had come for my crew, and now his squad was gone, and I was still sitting here. That was the whole answer. He didn't need more than that. He called off the assault, pulled his people back to minimum range, and radioed for diplomatic contact instead of reinforcements. Smartest thing that man did all week. Vex Nine's scales had gone pale enough to see the bone beneath. Is this how all of your kind is? No, Maya said, and something in her voice eased. Most of us build things instead of breaking them. Teachers, healers, people who have never raised a hand to anything in their lives. But every one of us is carrying the same thing underneath the surface. You don't see it unless you make the mistake of threatening what we love, and then the gentlest of us and the most hardened soldier look exactly alike. She told him one more, quieter than the first, 12 cargo haulers on a hauler called the Persistence, boarded by pirates who made the same miscalculation the Hegemony had. 3 raider ships found adrift 3 days later. No survivors, no distress call, nothing but a crew that limped home and told the port authority, flat and unbothered, that they'd handled it. That's the whole answer to your question, she said, setting down her empty glass. Armor is for things that expect to lose a fight. We don't plan to lose, so we don't bother carrying the weight. She nodded once to the room and walked out into the corridor, leaving behind a cantina full of species who finally understood why humanity's application to the Council had cleared so fast, and why no one had lodged a complaint against them since. Vex 9 turned to Rex Parker, his throat dry. Is she typical for your people? Rex's grin was the last thing worth remembering about that whole night. Her? No, friend. She's one of the soft ones. He tipped his glass toward the corridor Maya had vanished down. Used to teach 5-year-olds how to finger paint. Through the cantina's window, the docking bay lights caught something small drifting past. A child's paper boat, dropped by some station kid earlier that day, still turning slow circles in the recycled air, refusing to sink.